Hello everybody, Bill Harrison here with Harden Power Systems. We're going to do episode number 2 of the Harden Power half amp hour. I'm here with Sergio, and I guess this time what we're going to try to do is, I think we talked about it. You're supposed to say this part, right? So what do we have?
I get a lot of calls. I answer the calls here, most of them, and a lot of times we get talking to our customers, and they ask about different things about accessories. So we figured we would do this episode on the different accessories that we make available to customers, and hopefully answer some of your questions as to those accessories, how they work, what they're used for.
Yep.
We have a lot of handy little things that help in operation, and with that we would get started. One of the things I love, and it's simplicity, and just about everybody orders them when they order something, are the click stands.
Sure.
And those are just an amazing little device, and the simplicity of it, ease of use.
Yeah.
And
yeah. And it's like we talk sometimes, right? It's easy to complicate the heck out of something.
Right.
It is generally difficult to refine something down.
What is the quote?
Yeah, I forget the guy that said it, but pretty famous artist and designer. Essentially, that you know that you have achieved perfection in design when there is nothing left to add, but when there is nothing left to take away, right? Which almost seems counterintuitive until you think about it, or if you're involved in design or whatever. But it is amazing how that is the arc of design. You start out with something that's just a hairball, and you've got a goal, and the more you work on it, the more refined, the simpler, hopefully the more elegant. I was taught that a good example is a mousetrap. Mm-hmm. It's also called irreducible complexity. It's the idea that a mechanism or a machine or something has a minimum number of parts necessary to operate. And if it has only the minimum number of parts and no more, then it's what it wants to be.
You can't take anything away.
Yeah, think about a basic mousetrap. Every single part, even though there's only a handful of parts, each part has its role. Take one out of it, the whole thing ceases to be a mousetrap. Right? You mentioned click stands right away.
Right back there.
And it'd be easy to go long on this, right? So I want to be quick and I want to be mindful of people's time. This purely came from people wanting to be able to get a better viewing angle on a machine like a juice box or whatever. It works with anything that's metal. These little click stands are 3D printed. They use neodymium, rare earth magnets, to attach themselves to anything that's metal. It really is just that simple, right?
Right.
But if you were sitting, operating,
It gives you a good angle.
oh, it makes a big difference, because otherwise you catch yourself hunching over like this.
Right.
It's funny because we had a lot of customers asking for something like that, and I started noticing how many pictures we get of people using our equipment with the lid to the ammo can tucked underneath it to tilt it up, right? The click stands they're inexpensive, they're dirt simple, they're really durable, and we sell a lot of them, and of course a lot of people are using them for other stuff too. I'm not even entirely sure what, but they're just convenient little legs, and they can run in a low position, or you pivot them open and it's a slightly higher position, and they stick in both orientations. That's the click stand. It's on the website. Now, you mentioned the click stand. And I can appreciate that you wind up talking to people a lot, and that's definitely something that they want. One of my favorite accessories, just because it expands into so many other possibilities, is the backpack.
The
Okay,
backpack.
right?
Yeah.
A bit of a play on words, right? Not a backpack, but a battery pack. The idea, of course, is kind of like a backpack you would carry on your back. This straps onto a battery. So anyway, it's the Bat Pack, and we've had some jokes about Batman and
Right.
backpacks, right? Really, these came about because a lot of customers want to run 12-volt gear, but they don't necessarily need something like a juice box. Right? They don't need the sophistication, don't need the size, don't need the weight, don't need the inverter. Maybe don't need the variety of power points.
Or they have batteries already.
Sure, right. So to me, the backpack represented, maybe the poor man's power system. Okay, maybe the smart poor man's power system, because it's amazingly economical. But we manufacture the backpacks. We came up with them. They're not expensive. You find them on the site. Probably just looking at it, you can get an idea of what's really involved here. But it's a 3D printed chassis or body that connects to the tabs on the battery. It slides right onto it. And then these Velcro straps wrap around the battery to hug it. And they're almost not needed. When it's installed, the backpack is pretty secure. But these are nice, especially if it's in a bag getting bounced around or something. But mostly what you're accomplishing is you're getting some nice secure Anderson power points coming out. You've got a switch to turn a voltmeter on and off. And this is our solar backpack, so that switch also brings the solar controller online. Some people are surprised to hear this or to see it or whatever, but we've got a 5 amp solar controller embedded in this device. Opens up a lot of possibilities. The battery that I just showed happened to be a Dakota LifePo 4, but that's a drop-in LifePo 4, meaning that it accepts a AGM charging profile. That allows us to make the backpack with an AGM profile. Allows it to be used for a for a LifePo 4 or an AGM interchangeably. Now, if you're carrying this thing around, you're probably going to wind up getting LifePo 4,
Right.
just for the weight,
The weight.
right? But some cool things you can do. For example, if you just took our multi-tap, yet another accessory, and this happens to provide 4 different power ports for USB, but you could plug the backpack into a multi-tap like this, put it on a battery. At that point, not only could you charge and fast charge, these are 3 amp ports, each one of them, right? This is a 12 amp little power supply. Not only could you charge, like, say, 4 cell phones or 4 tablets, but you've got the battery attached to this, and then one of our little adapters, which is an Anderson to 55x21. I think these are like $8 on the site. And this is your solar input. So
You can
You
have
can-
it charging at the
Oh.
same time that you're using.
and really how all this kind of came out was after a couple of hurricanes, we were getting customer photos, and I wound up with and a lot of them were actually posted on social media. But one that sticks in my mind was a customer had, and he had the larger version of the backpack, okay, which fits on an RDC4 format battery. Both these batteries are very common. But he had 2 of these sitting on 2 batteries on a picnic table, and he had USB splitters plugged in, and there was like 15 cell phones
Being charged.
being charged on his little backyard picnic table, because clearly the neighborhood was out of power, and probably most of his neighbors had no way to charge their stuff. Communications is the first thing people tend to want, right? And he wound up being the guy on the spot that he could actually do it. And he had a little solar panel laid out. So seeing that really, for me, kind of prompted an attempt to make that more turnkey. And that's how the multi-tap was born. But yeah, you could plug a multi-tap into this, have 4 ports. You could plug another one in and have 4 more ports. You can plug a $99 eBay or Amazon solar panel into the backpack. And yeah, just like you were saying, charge it while you're using it. What you wind up with is the possibility that you could spend, $70-80 on a solar backpack. You could spend $100 on a really high quality Dakota 10 amp hour LiFePO4 battery. Spend a few more bucks on some accessories. Fit it all in a really small pouch or bag. And if you need to, potentially jump a car, right? But certainly run lighting, run a radio, run a small fan, keep phones charged, keep handy talkies charged. There's a huge amount of things that you can do with just 12 volts DC, without using an inverter, without any large heavy gear. And to me, one of the things that's nice about this, you start to get a nice fundamental understanding of 12 volts and how it works and what you can do with it. So yeah, these are backpacks, and I don't know. I guess to me, one of the reasons I like these, they're just so simple. I mean, if you want to like split hairs, really the only moving part is the switch. We very rarely, well, you would know better than I, we don't get warranty issues on backpacks much at all.
Very few.
Right.
I think in the whole time I've been here, 1.
Okay, yeah. And yeah, and that's what I would expect to hear. And the funny thing is, these are not, these aren't generally just sitting on a shelf. These are in the field. They're in a bag. They're in a trunk. They're in a go bag. They're in a box. They're getting used. They're getting dropped. They're getting set outside. So to me, that's a nice example.
They hold up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, one other thing, and again, just a neat trick, right? So this is a pretty standard, pretty common AC wall wart. A lot of our gear uses this to charge. Well, 5.5 by 2.1. That's the same as our solar input. So since this thing puts out 15 volts, this solar controller sees it as a solar panel. It doesn't know the difference, doesn't care.
Wall charge it.
Right. So now with just this device, you can charge it with a solar panel, but you can also plug it in the house and trickle charge. This is a 3-stage charger as well, so it's an intelligent charger. It'll bulk, taper, and float charge. Now, there's some people out there that just went, aha, because LiFePO4 technically doesn't like a float charge. The Dakota batteries take care of that. Again, you can use the AGM profile. So, yeah, the backpacks I think are neat. Really, really just handy.
And that little pouch right there that you got that out of, that's our USB bundle.
Yep. And
they're in the
couple.
front pocket.
Okay, so you've got nanos there.
And
what about a multi-tap or a multiplier? Yeah, that's another good one that we can talk about. So yeah, okay. USB bundle was mostly once we started to identify a pattern of what customers were buying. Pretty much these items were just an obvious candidate.
things that went together with
Things that supported one another, worked well together. Each of them by themselves are useful. And it just allowed us to bundle it, discount the price because it's bundled. I'd much rather sell a half a dozen things at a discount and ship them once. Right? You start shipping little things like this all over the country, and that's someone's paying for it. Whether it's us or the customer. Yeah, okay. Easy way to do this.
This right here, I love.
Okay.
it's an amazing little light.
Brighter
And
than you think.
it's surprising how much light this puts out. I have used it when our power's gone out, and it lights up the room.
Yep.
And what's really cool is you just put your finger on there and you can graduate it down or graduate
Yep.
it up.
Back to simplicity, right? Like when I was writing the description for this, when we very first came out with it, and I actually wrote, that it's infinitely dimmable with no moving parts. And that's kind of a surprising thing to think that, well, there's no knob, or, how is it infinitely dimmable if nothing moves? And yeah, it's just a little touchscreen on back that senses your fingertip. And I've learned to point these things down.
Yeah, blind yourself.
So yeah, I'm sure you can appreciate that that's bright. It's a 1 watt LED at max. And this is really very simple. It's a small module that we 3D print the housing, and then we bond everything together. It's just small, simple, light. 2 years ago, right after a year and a half ago, right after I had finished prototypes of this, we had a tree go down out here at the shop. And some of you folks know, but our shop is located on our property, right? So my commute is awesome. It's, I walk past my car on the way to work. It's great. A tree came down, took out power to the shop and the house late at night, midnight, hot summer night. So we wound up all on the front porch of the house, enjoying the breeze, waiting for the electrical people to come out and repair what pretty spectacular light show when something like that happens, and a tree branch actually shorts out the high voltage lines. But anyway, I did exactly this, an M4 backpack with the USB drivers, 2 of these lights sitting up on the porch, and my wife was knitting.
Enough light
By that light, easily, yeah. And for what it's worth, that's not the kind of thing you do in the dark. Right? You really do need to see what you're doing. Otherwise, you just wind up having to redo a lot of it. So, very useful work light. And the fact that it's dimmable, one of the things, if you lose power, depends on the situation. I've been in situations where you lose power for a period of time, and you wind up with like multiple people sleeping in like one big room, like in the living room. Maybe that's because there's a heat source there, right?
Right.
But middle of the night,
somebody has to get up.
Right. It's really nice to have a light that you can dim down so low that it pulls almost no power and just leave it on. And we do make a version of the Nano that is a red light. And it's funny, we joke about ideas coming from customers. I did not even think of that. It was not even on my radar. We made this Nano, and it was not even a couple days. And we were getting requests for one that was red tinted. And that's for obvious reasons, right? To preserve night vision. So those are the Nano LEDs. Cables. Just a simple, what I would consider a pretty low power patch cord, right? But Anderson to Anderson. Really useful, especially if you're using something like a splitter or or the multi-tap. This is just and this is kind of funny too. A lot of our gear is pretty specific to like ham radio or military or communications or whatever. And we don't necessarily have that many products that would have like a broad appeal to like just your average person. But I'll tell you what, the multi-tap with 4 USB drivers, very simple little car charger, and all of a sudden, we've got people that no interest in a lot of the gear that we build or whatever. They've got completely different needs or desires or pastimes. But this, plug it into your car. Now, like all 4 people have all their stuff
plugged in,
being charged or powered easily, right? So that's just kind of an obvious one. And one of the neat things about the multi-tap too is power can come into either port and then back out of the other. And that's actually because this was originally the idea here, and that's why we called it a multi-tap. The idea was, in the most basic sense, if you've got a ham shack, you've got a power supply and a radio, and they're connected, obviously, by power. And if you're doing that with Andersons, which hopefully you are, or at least it's the best way I'm aware of to make those types of connections, this means you can come out of your power supply into the multi-tap, immediately come right back out again into the back of the radio. And you're familiar with what this looks like inside.
Right.
You can push a lot of power through this. If you've got a 20, 30, 40 amp power supply that's pushing a hungry radio, don't worry about it. You can run that power through here, and when that's happening, these 4 little USBs just tap into that power and pull a little bit off for the USB. And then a nano USB. Seems like we're saying USB a lot.
Yeah.
Nano USB almost started out just as a thought exercise, but we pretty quickly had something that actually was working. Just how small, really, can you make a high-powered USB driver? Well, apparently this is how small you can make a 3 amp USB driver, and it's certainly specific kind of to our customer base. Again, Andersons, right? But if you're using Andersons, if you've got any part of our gear or anything like a backpack, if you've got 12 volt power, and it's actually anything from like 8 to 22 volts. But if you've got DC power, just plug this in, you've got a good solid USB driver. Popular item, a lot of people use them. Well, I can see it is going to be easy to fill up a half hour.
We will
Okay.
put it in hydrate. This is...
Yes.
And we do sell a lot of these. A lot of people request them, and also they'll start out, well, I need this cable, I need that cable, and I'll try to refer them to our page to look at the bundle, which if you're needing all these things, you're going to save by getting the bundle.
Sure. And a lot of times it's, you don't know what you need till you need it.
Right.
Bump into that all the time, especially with power and different cables and different connections. So yeah, the Anderson Accessory Bundle basically was an attempt to, kind of like the USB, to cherry pick the items that people seem to get the most use out of. And again, thanks to a bundle, drop the price. And I got to say too, I'm really quite proud of the way our cables and stuff are built, and the way our people put them together, and it's just it's neat to pick something up, look at it closely, and realize that it's built the way you'd probably build it if you had the right tools, if you took your time, if it wasn't the first time you'd done it, you'd learned from mistakes, and you did everything the way it really wanted to be. I mean, this is a simple thing. It's a 6-foot Anderson to jumper cable. I mean, it's simple. But we take a lot of care and a lot of attention into how it's made. High quality stuff. We're using our own Gription strain relief here. It's a high strand, pure copper cable, and this is the kind of thing, jump a car, right? Or if you want to daisy chain any of our gear to a secondary power source, it could be an old truck battery that has a charge, and just clamp onto it, and then plug the Andersons into the front of like a juice box or a Recon operator or something, and use some of that power. Another obvious one: female cigarette socket to Anderson. Right? So many people, I'm a fan of like the RV department. Either in a big box store, or actually the big truck stops are a great place to go.
Good DC stuff.
Fans, heaters, which of course heat is a terrible thing to do with electrical power, but it still happens. But fans, heaters, coolers, adapters, chargers, lights, all sorts of stuff, and you'll find some neat stuff. But especially if people lose power and they've got DC. Like maybe they've got a backpack or whatever. if they start rooting around for what they already have in the garage or in the truck or in the shed, a lot of that, if it's DC, is going to be a male cigarette socket. So it's obvious, right? So a female cigarette socket with an Anderson. But something this simple, if you don't think about it, to make sure you have it on hand, this could be the least expensive part of the whole process. And it's likely to be the one you don't have.
Right.
You know, you might be, miserable hot because you've lost power in the summer. And you've got a couple of DC fans. And you've got a battery. Right. So, obvious one. Little USB driver. Similar to a nano USB.
On a cord.
Sure, allows you at least to plug in at one point and then bring this over closer to another device. Anderson to J plug. This would be used for chargers. If you buy a Schumacher or a Black & Decker battery charger at your local auto parts store, it's going to have that termination. So that allows you to use a backpack and charge a battery. And then this is just a male cigarette to Anderson. And this can be real handy. For example, a juice box. Plug into the cigarette socket on a juice box, plug in another power source, and now you're daisy chaining again. Right? You don't have to do it through the Andersons. I prefer you do because the connection is better. But
now, would this, for instance, work well if you're traveling and you decide you want to top off your battery on your...
Yeah, it's funny, okay? An automotive cigarette socket was sized around a cigar,
Right.
like 90 years ago.
To light a cigar.
Right. It was never intended to be like the best source or best method of transferring power. And this little tip here is one of my pet peeves, right?
Right.
Because you've got this nice beefy wire, but yeah, it's the weakest link. And here you go, this little, that's carrying the positive side. So if your battery is dead, and the hello Diesel, if your battery is dead, but the car is an easy start and it always starts well, yeah, it works. It works fine. Plug a juice box or backpack. Let the current flow in reverse through the cigarette socket, and then start the car. When it won't work, and when I've seen problems, there's two things. One, most automotive cigarette outlets have a 10 amp fuse. Okay, which is smart because that's what you're dealing with. Is this? If it's a big vehicle or if it's a hard start, if the problem isn't really the battery itself, but something else is causing the vehicle to start with difficulty, and that ran the battery down, it's probably not going to work.
Right.
But yeah, other than that, it works. I've done it with our grocery getter. We don't have that car anymore, but a little Impala, and it just headlights were left on, battery was dead, and yeah,
That was enough to...
just let it sit for a few minutes, and it started right up. Sure.
Right.
Anything else?
Oh, let's see. I think we pretty much have covered most of the things here, and
Oh, one thing to mention about backpacks. That's kind of cool. Thank you. If you got a couple of batteries, there's no reason why you can't parallel one backpack to another.
so now with this, you could plug the solar panel into this one and charge your other batteries.
It's one of the neat things about it, right? Is that now these are both paired together. So if power comes into the solar controller, the solar controller sees the average of both voltages. Because as soon as those two batteries are connected, they're very quickly going to try to normalize between one another, right? And yeah, the solar controller will charge both of them. And the neat thing is, of course, while you're doing that or afterwards, pull power from other ports. Right?
That's cool.
Yeah, it's neat stuff. I guess I've always been a fan of where you don't necessarily throw money at the problem. right? But instead, it's maybe some cleverness or some experience or some good advice or just having the right gear or the foresight to have a handful of different things.
What I like about these two is just in watching what you were just showing and just looking at them is the flexibility of the different things you can do.
Yep. Yep. It's like I'm trying to think of all the different things I've seen customers do with them. There's, I don't know how many, a half a dozen maybe schoolrooms in South Africa. And they've got a small solar panel on the roof. They've got a little LifePo 4 Dakota battery. They've got a solar backpack. And with that, they run LED Christmas lights around the room. And that allows them enough light to read and study by. You know, you got to talk about inexpensive and durable, right? And those things have been, that was well over a year ago that I know that those were all deployed, you know.
Well, we're a little bit spoiled until the lights go out, and then we go.
Sure.
We don't have anything because
Yep.
we're not used to that.
Yep. It's funny, light and communications. It's like the first things that, you know, one, you don't want to bark your shin.
Right.
You don't want to step in a hole.
Yeah. Anybody that's ever walked around a vehicle at night and hit the hitch on their truck or something knows exactly what
Yeah.
you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for that. Makes me cringe. I guess that's it.
That's it. Well, that's about all we have for this half amp hour. And like always, you know, please check us out. We appreciate your comments. Share, you know, let people know. And what is it you're always going to say?
Yep. Like, subscribe, share. I've got a new one though. Hit the bell icon for notifications, right?
Okay.
And then you'll find out, or you'll get an email or whatever when we release a video.
Well, we will be back again, hopefully next week,
Yeah,
with
hopefully.
something new.
Lord willing, we'll be back. All right, everybody. Thank you very much.
Bye.